There's something deeply unsettling about guarding places that are never meant to feel alive after midnight. Empty lots, silent buildings, long fences disappearing into darkness. As a night shift security guard, you spend hours listening to small noises and telling yourself they're nothing. A loose sign, a raccoon, wind against metal. But every now and then, something happens that doesn't fit any normal explanation. And the worst part is, when you're the only one there, you don't always get proof. Tonight, I'm sharing 3 true night shift security guard horror stories that prove some places become very different after dark. If you're alone right now, lock your doors, and let's begin. Back in 2019, I worked private security at a distribution yard outside city limits. The property was huge. Cargo trailers, storage containers, loading bays, all surrounded by chain link fencing and open farmland. There were only 2 staffed access points, the front gate where I sat and a smaller service gate on the far end of the property. On night shifts, there were usually 2 of us. I worked the front entrance, and another guard worked the rear gate about a quarter mile away. We mostly talked over radio just to stay awake. We almost never saw each other in person unless there was an emergency. The job was easy. Check late trucks in, log plates, keep the gate secure, watch camera feeds, and wait for sunrise. Most nights were dead quiet after midnight. The night this happened started exactly like that. I clocked in at 10 p.m. A few drivers came through during the first hour, then nothing. By 12:30, the property was silent. No movement on the cameras, no traffic on the road. Just the hum of fluorescent lights in my little booth and static from the radio clipped to my vest. At around 1:15, the other guard radioed me. His voice sounded odd right away. He asked, "Did you hear that?" I asked him what he meant. He said it sounded like someone yelling out in the field behind his gate. I stepped outside my booth and listened. All I heard was wind moving through grass. I told him I didn't hear anything. He didn't answer for a second, then just said, "Forget it." I remember looking at the camera feed on his side after that. Nothing unusual, just the gate, gravel, fence line, and darkness beyond it. About 20 minutes later, he came over the radio again, this time quieter. "Look toward the east fence," he said. I turned in my chair and looked past the rows of trailers toward the far side of the property. At first I saw nothing, then I noticed it. A light, very small, very distant. It looked like a flashlight bobbing slowly in the field beyond the fence. It wasn't near any road, and there were no houses out there, just open land leading toward a patch of trees in the distance. I switched camera angles, but the night feeds were terrible that far out. The light kept appearing, disappearing, then appearing again a few yards from where it had been. I asked him if maybe it was a hunter. He immediately said no. Hunting wasn't allowed anywhere near that area, and even if it was, nobody should have been out there at that hour, walking around a fenced industrial yard. For the next 10 minutes, we both watched it. Neither of us could tell if the light was coming closer or just moving sideways through the field. It never crossed the fence. It just drifted in strange, uneven patterns like whoever held it kept stopping to look at something. Then it vanished. Not faded. Vanished. 1 second it was there. The next, complete darkness. We kept talking about it for a while, but nothing else happened. Around 2:30, the other guard joked that maybe some drunk had wandered in from the highway and passed out in the grass. I laughed, but it didn't land. Something about the way that light moved bothered me. A little after 3 a.m., my radio clicked on. No voice, just an open channel. I said his name once. Nothing. Then the channel closed. I waited maybe 10 seconds and called him again. Still nothing. At first I wasn't too worried. Sometimes the radios clipped on by accident if you leaned into something. But then I checked the camera feed on his gate. His chair was empty. The door to his booth was open. I stared at the monitor for a few seconds, expecting him to walk back in. He didn't. I called him 3 more times. No response. Then I scrubbed back through the camera recording, and that's when my stomach dropped. Just after 3 o'clock, he stepped out of his booth and stood completely still near the outer gate. He wasn't checking anything. He wasn't using his flashlight. He was just standing there, facing the field. Then, very slowly, he unlocked the pedestrian exit, opened it, and walked out, not running, not cautious. Just walked straight into the dark field beyond the fence like someone had called him by name. I watched the footage twice because it made no sense. He never looked around, never radioed me, never hesitated. He just kept walking until the darkness swallowed him. And he never came back into frame. I knew I should have called police immediately, but in that moment I still thought there had to be some explanation. Maybe he saw a trespasser. Maybe he went to scare someone off. Maybe he'd be standing right outside when I got there, embarrassed. So I left my station and drove the yard truck to the rear gate. His booth was empty, radio still on the desk, coffee still warm. I stepped out and looked through the open pedestrian gate into the field. Nothing. No movement, no light, no sound. I called his name over and over. Then my radio clicked on again. Same open channel, no voice. This time, though, I heard something faint. Not speaking, breathing. I froze. It lasted maybe 3 seconds, then the channel cut out. That was enough for me. I locked his gate, ran back inside the booth, and called the police. They searched until sunrise, then all day, then again the next day. They found footprints in the wet grass leading out toward the tree line, but after that the ground got too hard to track. No blood, no body, no signs of a fight. The official theory was that he went after a trespasser and got lost or injured. But I still don't believe that, because if he had decided to investigate, he would have told me. We always updated each other before leaving our posts. And more than that, the way he walked in that footage never looked like a man chasing someone. It looked like a man following something he already knew was out there. I quit 2 weeks later. What still keeps me up isn't that he disappeared. It's the thought that if the light had shown up on my side of the fence first, I might have walked out there too. For most of my 20s, I worked contract security in vacant properties. Old offices, closed supermarkets, half-finished developments, places nobody cared about anymore except to keep people out of them. One assignment I had was a former department store on the edge of a small town. The place had been shut down for years. The parking lot was cracked, weeds coming through the asphalt, and half the signs had fallen off the building. Locals used to break in all the time, so the city hired our company to keep watch until the building could be demolished. The inside was worse than the outside. Long dark aisles stripped of shelves, empty display areas, stockrooms with peeling paint, service hallways that seemed to go on forever. At night, only a few emergency lights worked, so most of the building sat in this dim orange gloom that made everything look wrong. Normally there were 2 guards on shift, one watching monitors, the other doing interior rounds. But sometimes if scheduling got bad, one person had to cover the whole night alone. That week, I was alone. On my second solo shift, around 12:45 a.m., one of the front motion alerts triggered. I looked at the monitor expecting to see teenagers messing around outside. Instead, there was a man standing right at the main entrance. He was wearing a dark hoodie and jeans, hands in his pockets, just staring into the glass. I picked up the radio on instinct before remembering there was nobody else in the building. Then he knocked. 3 slow hits, not loud. Just enough to let me know he wanted me to come to the door. I stayed in the monitor room and kept watching him. He stepped closer, knocked again, this time harder. I considered hitting the exterior speaker and telling him police were on the way, but something about the way he stood there bothered me. He wasn't drunk, wasn't angry, wasn't trying to force his way in. He looked patient, like he knew eventually I'd have to come out. After about 20 seconds, he smiled at the camera above the door, then walked out of frame. I checked every angle outside and couldn't find him. I wrote it in the incident log and tried not to think about it. The next few nights were quiet. Then on the 5th night, almost the exact same time, the motion alert went off again. Same man, same clothes, only this time he didn't go to the front door. He moved along the side of the building, stopping at boarded windows, pulling lightly on handles, peering into the gaps. I could hear some of it from inside. Soft metallic rattling. A window frame flexing. Shoes on gravel. He was checking every possible way in. I called local dispatch and reported suspicious activity, but by the time a patrol car drove past 20 minutes later, he was gone. No plates, no vehicle, no clear face on camera. Again. After that, I started taking the job more seriously. No more scrolling on my phone. No more sitting with headphones in one ear. I kept the flashlight on me at all times and locked the monitor room whenever I stepped out. A week later, I came in for my next shift and found a voicemail from my supervisor telling me the previous night's guard had left mid-shift and refused to return. He didn't explain why. That got my attention because the guy who worked before me was older, calm, and not the type to panic. I texted him asking what happened. No reply.
No.
A few minutes later, I noticed he had blocked my number. That made the empty building feel different right away. Around 1 a.m., I started my round through the rear stock hall. That area had no cameras, just my flashlight and the emergency lights overhead. Halfway down the corridor, I noticed broken glass under one of the side windows. Fresh glass. It definitely hadn't been there the night before. I approached slowly and looked out into the darkness beyond the window. There was a service road, then brush, then woods. No movement, no sound. Then the motion alarm started going off from the opposite end of the building. One sensor after another. Front hall, north entry, seasonal storage wing, like something was moving quickly from one zone to the next.
Set.
I backed away from the window and started toward the monitor room. Then I heard a voice behind me, quiet, weak. Please. I turned so hard I nearly slipped on the broken glass. Nothing was in the corridor. The voice came again from outside the broken window. Help me. It sounded like a woman, very faint, crying between words. Every hair on my arms went up. I knew immediately something was wrong with it, not because of what it said, because the voice never got closer. It stayed at the exact same volume, exact same tone, no matter how much I moved, as if whoever was out there wasn't approaching the building at all, just standing perfectly still in the dark, repeating the same thing. Then I heard another sound from outside, a soft tap against the glass frame, then another, like fingers. I ran. I got back to the monitor room, locked the door, and called police. While I was on the phone, I could still hear the voice faintly through the hall outside. Help me! Please help. Then it changed. It said my first name. I had never told anyone on site my first name. Not out loud. Not that night. I remember grabbing the desk so hard my hand cramped. The dispatcher kept telling me officers were on the way, asking me if I could confirm how many suspects were inside. Inside. I looked at the monitor wall. One of the interior corridor cameras had come back online for a second after glitching earlier. And there, on the screen outside the monitor room door, was the same man from the front entrance, just standing in the hallway, facing my door. He wasn't trying to open it. He wasn't moving. He was just standing there with his head slightly tilted, like he was listening to me breathe through the other side. Then the camera feed cut to static. I heard one hard knock on the door, then silence. Police arrived less than 10 minutes later, though it felt like an hour. They cleared the building and surrounding lot. Nobody found the man, but they did find muddy prints near the broken side window. And one thing that really got to me, there were two distinct sets of footprints outside, one large, one small. The smaller set ended directly below the broken window, and then just stopped, like whoever made them had simply vanished before reaching the wall. I never went back. The older guard who abandoned his shift never told anyone what happened to him. But after my experience, I think I know why. Somebody, or something, wanted the guards to come closer to that broken window, and if I'd leaned out to help, I don't think I'd be here telling this story. A few years ago, I took a private security job for a wealthy family with an estate way out in the woods. This wasn't a gated suburban mansion. This place was isolated. Long private road, acres of forest, no visible neighbors, and a house so big it felt more like a hotel than a home. They hired me for overnight watch 3 nights a week. The arrangement was simple. I'd arrive at 9 p.m., patrol the grounds every hour, check all lower-level doors and windows, and stay inside near the main hall between rounds. The family kept to themselves. Nice enough, but secretive. I got the impression something had happened before I was hired because they asked strange questions during the interview. What would I do if I heard someone on the property but couldn't see them? Would I enter the woods alone? Would I investigate interior movement if the alarm system didn't trigger? At the time, I thought they were just being cautious rich people. Now I'm not so sure. For the first 4 months, the job was uneventful. Sometimes the family traveled, leaving me alone in the house all night. Those were the easiest shifts. No guests, no lights turning on upstairs. No random noises from people moving around. Then one week in late October, they left for what was supposed to be a 10-day trip. The first night was normal. The second night, around 2 a.m., I was doing my exterior round along the side of the house where the trees came closest to the driveway. That's when I got the feeling someone was watching me. Not nerves, not imagination. That very specific instinct that makes you stop walking and listen harder. I turned my flashlight toward the tree line. Nothing, but I couldn't shake the feeling. When I came back inside, I left more lights on than usual. An hour later, one of the landline phones somewhere deeper in the house started ringing. The family had never told me where all the extension phones were, and the place was huge, so I ignored it. It stopped after 4 rings. Maybe 20 minutes later, I heard footsteps overhead, slow, measured. Crossing from one side of the upper floor to the other, I froze in the foyer and listened. The family wasn't home. I was absolutely certain of that. I had personally watched their car leave the driveway that morning, and nobody else should have been in the house. The footsteps stopped. I waited. Nothing else happened. I told myself old houses settle, even though this house wasn't all that old. Then I completed another ground floor sweep and stayed near the stairs for almost half an hour. Nothing. So I let it go. The next night, the same thing happened, only louder. Just after midnight, while sitting near the front windows, I heard quick, heavy steps from above, followed by what sounded like a door shutting somewhere on the 3rd floor. That bothered me because I had never even been on the 3rd floor. My instructions only covered the 1st floor, basement access, and outdoor perimeter. Still, I grabbed my flashlight and went up to the 2nd floor landing. The house was almost completely dark up there. Long hall, closed doors, family portraits, thick carpet swallowing sound. I listened for a full minute. Then came another noise. 3 fast steps directly above me. Whoever, or whatever it was, had moved again. I went back downstairs and called the property manager, but he didn't answer, so I spent the rest of that shift checking locks every 15 minutes and waiting for daylight. On the 3rd night, things got worse. During my 1 a.m. perimeter check, I found tire tracks cutting off the gravel path and into the woods near the east side of the property. Fresh tracks. The soil was still damp from rain the night before, and the tread edges were clean. No question, a vehicle had gone in recently. I followed the tracks with my flashlight about 30 yards into the trees and found an old dark sedan half hidden between trunks and brush. Engine cold, no plates, driver's door slightly open. I didn't go closer than that. I backed out of the woods and texted the property manager, then returned to the house and locked every entrance again. The moment I stepped inside, I heard running overhead. Not walking, running. Fast footsteps across the ceiling above the 2nd floor hall, then a slam, then another, a door opening and closing somewhere upstairs. I stood there for maybe 2 seconds before deciding I had to verify whether someone was actually inside. I took the stairs to the 2nd floor, flashlight shaking in my hand. The hallway was empty, but at the far end, I could see one door standing open. I was almost certain it had been closed during my earlier rounds. I approached slowly and shined the light into the room. It was a large bedroom. Drawers half open, closet doors wide, bedding pulled back, items scattered across the floor. Not messy, searched, like someone had gone through it in a hurry, looking for something specific. Then behind me, from the opposite end of the hall, a door slammed so hard it echoed through the entire house. I spun around and heard multiple sets of footsteps below me. Not one person, several, moving fast across the 1st floor. I ran for the staircase and dialed 911 at the same time. I stopped halfway down because I heard voices. Not clear words, just low, hurried whispering from somewhere near the back of the house. I couldn't tell if they were in the kitchen, the main hall, or outside the glass doors. I stayed on the stairs and told dispatch I believed multiple intruders were inside. Then all at once, the house went dead silent. No footsteps, no whispers, nothing. I don't know how long I stood there listening, but eventually I crept down to the 1st floor and locked myself in a study near the foyer until deputies arrived. When police searched the property, they found the sedan in the woods. It had been wiped clean inside. No paperwork, no plates, no usable prints. They also found signs that at least 3 people had been moving around the side of the house, likely using the woods for cover. The family came back the next morning. What bothered me most was their reaction. They weren't shocked, they were angry. Not scared, not confused, angry. Like this wasn't the first time people had come onto the property looking for something. They never explained what had happened before I was hired, and they never told me what they thought those people wanted. I quit the same day. I still think about one detail I never put in my official report. When I first found that open bedroom upstairs, there was a smell in the room. Not dust, not old wood. Cigarette smoke. Fresh enough that whoever had been standing there couldn't have left more than a minute before I arrived. Which means while I was patrolling outside in the woods, there were already people inside the house. And if I had gone deeper toward that car instead of turning back, I might have walked right into them. Or worse, I might have led them straight to myself. Night security is strange because most of the job is silence, hours and hours of nothing, which is exactly why the wrong sound, the wrong light, the wrong movement in the dark feels so much worse. Because when something finally does happen, you know immediately it doesn't belong there. And sometimes by the time you realize that, it's already too late.